For those just joining us, I wanted to make sure you had this link written down. It is also in the chat box. So it's bit.ly /path to GC1. And I'm going to jump on down to our slide for today, which is slide 12. This is beginning Google Classroom. So today we're going to just walk through the very basics of getting started with Classroom. You may have noticed that Google Classroom is a 3-part session. That is because it's a very, especially if you're brand new to Classroom, it can be a little bit overwhelming with all of the different features. So we wanted to make sure that we had the time to actually deep dive into each of those features and make sure that you feel comfortable with those. So I will be going through these skills today, and if you need to go back to review any of these at any time, all you have to do is click on, oops, these didn't get hyperlinked yet. By the end of the day, please click on these, and I will make sure they take you to the step-by-step directions. Also, you'll notice on the side, we do have a practice task. And so at the end of today, it's a good idea to walk through and make sure that you can complete that task if you are preparing for the Level 1 certification. And this entire slide deck will prepare you for that. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to begin by using my Chrome browser, and I could either type in classroom.google.com or I can click on the waffle over on the side and I can access Google Classroom from here. And while that's loading, don't forget to use that chat box today if you have any questions. And when I first get into Classroom, you'll notice I actually belong to a lot of Google Classroom. So I can see all of the classes that I either teach or that I have been invited to be a student of. So these are my class cards, and we will be referencing those throughout our trainings. But to start a brand new Google Classroom, I'm going to click on the plus sign in the top right-hand corner. And I'm going to create a class. And it's that easy. To begin, I'm going to give it a name. And this is a lesson I've really learned during our NTI time, is that please be very specific when naming your classrooms. I had one of my daughter's teachers just named it like second period. Well, if teachers don't archive their classes, maybe she had 3 different second period classes in her Google Classroom. So I would go ahead and name these. Be very specific when you name them, and that will really help your students on the other end. I can say maybe this is going to be my math class and create. Okay, and so I'm going to jump into a class I've already created, but that's how quick it is to create a class. You'll notice the name is at the top, and then I have a couple of different options. So I can choose to change the theme here. Maybe I want to make it more related to a math or science classroom. And so I can select a theme that will carry over my entire class. So it's that easy to set up a class. Just as a quick reminder, I came in to classroom.google.com, I clicked on the plus sign and hit create class. So at any time, I can come back to these 3 dots. A lot of people refer to those as a hamburger or a hot dog, but just these 3 stacked lines will bring me back to my class cards. Okay, so once you have your class, I think the next thing you might want to do is invite students. And we can do this in a couple of different ways. My favorite way, if we're in our classroom, is to share this code with them. So right underneath of my class name, you'll notice there's a class code. I'll make that a little bigger so you can display it. And so this is what I would give to my students. And then my students would go to their waffle, click on Classroom, and hit the plus sign, except they would say, join class. And by typing in this code, it automatically enrolls them in my Google Classroom. Another way that I can invite people to be members of my classroom is I can click on people. You'll notice at the top we have stream, classwork, people, and grades. So I'm going to go to people, and you can this is divided into two different categories. At the top, I have my teachers. At the bottom, I have my students. So let's say that I wanted to add a collaborator to this classroom, a teacher we're going to co-teach. Maybe it's a resource teacher that works with me, or maybe it's an instructional assistant that you have. So notice it works with the directory. Once I start to type in their name, then their email will populate, and I can now invite someone to be a teacher of this class. You can do the same thing with students. You can click on the plus sign. You start to type in the student's name, and notice it is populated by our Fayette County directory. And so I can now invite the students to my classroom. So two different ways to invite. You can either share the class code with your students, or you can come to people and manually type in their names. Notice from my People tab, I do have a couple of more options. Let's say that I wanted to say that this student, her name is Addison, and she is a big troublemaker. And I could actually come up and do actions with this. Maybe Addison hasn't learned how to make appropriate comments on the stream yet. I could actually mute her. Or maybe she moved. I could remove her from my classroom as well. Also from this screen, I want to talk to you about two different things. So you'll notice that there was the option to select all of my students, and I could take the action to email all of my students. This works in a perfect Google world. It does not work in Fayette County. This does not work because we do not use Gmail as our email. And so Google Classroom works with Gmail. So this is not a way that you would be able to email your students in Fayette County. But for those of you who are pursuing Google certification, please know that if our district used Gmail, that you would be able to come in and email all of your students from this tab. I also have the capability to invite a guardian from here. So if you know the individual email addresses of your parents for each student, you can come and paste those in. And so what happens, it doesn't allow parents to come in and do work for them. It doesn't even let them see the classwork page. However, if parents accept this invitation, they will get a weekly summary email showing what was due that week, maybe something that a student didn't turn in if they are late on an assignment. So it helps parents know what's going on in the classroom that they cannot see inside of the classroom. Okay, so that's how to invite students to your classroom. Going back to the stream is where all of the action takes place. And so anytime I create an assignment or an announcement, it will populate here. And this works a lot like social media. So whenever I post something today, it's going to appear on the top. But if I come in tomorrow and post something, it's going to push everything down. So your most recent work will appear at the top. Speaking of announcements, let's say I want to share something with my class. So maybe I could say, don't forget to join our meet at 1 p.m. So I can send an announcement to my class by coming to this tab. Notice by default, it is going to go to the classroom that I'm working in currently. If I wanted to, let's say I taught 3 sections of the same class, and I wanted this announcement to go to all 3 classes. I can do that by just checking these boxes, and you can now tell that this is going to 3 different classes at the exact same time. If you're only sharing it to 1 class, you have the capability to share this announcement. By default, it goes to all students, but you could pick and choose only a few students or even 1 student to do this. So maybe you have 1 student that needs a little bit of extra work, or maybe they're working on a different level and you want those notifications just to go to specific students. You can do that here. By default, I'll make it go to everybody. So this is a great way to differentiate instruction because you're not embarrassing anybody by not making them wonder, well, why did so-and-so get this, but I didn't have to. So they only see it if it's sent specifically to them. With my announcements, I can add attachments. Notice I can add a file from my computer. I could add something from my Google Drive. So this is great. Maybe you want to give them directions on how to join this Google Meet, or maybe expectations. You could actually attach that right here. Maybe you want them to visit a different link. So maybe I wanted them to go to a website with this announcement. So I can link it right here. I also have the ability to link a YouTube video from here. So maybe I wanted them to watch a video on how to join Google Meet. I could also go out to YouTube first, find that URL, and paste it in. Google Classroom is a great way to share YouTube videos with your students because a lot of times we are very nervous to share YouTube videos because we get pop-ups and advertisements and those scary suggested videos at the end. By attaching a YouTube video inside of Google Classroom, it strips all of that away and they're just watching the video. They won't be distracted by those ads or going to a different video. Okay, so I have my announcement created. I decided what class I wanted to send it to, what students, what was my message. I could add attachments. Before I post this, I just want to show you that you can even work ahead with this a little bit. I can click on this drop-down arrow, and I can save this as a draft. Maybe I want to come back and work with it later. Or I could even schedule this. So instead of posting it right now, maybe I'm preparing for the next day. So maybe I want this to appear tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So if I hit schedule, it's not showing up yet because I wanted that to appear tomorrow. If you need to edit any of these, you just open them back up and you can edit as well. When I schedule an announcement, it will appear right here in my stream. Okay. Any questions so far about using the stream or adding students? So far we've created our class, we've added students, and then we've added an announcement to our stream. So I want to talk a little bit now about the classwork page because this is where the magic happens. A couple of things at the top before I start. You will notice that whenever you create a Google Classroom, you automatically get a Google Calendar that goes right along with it. This is a great tool that you really need to take time to teach your kids about. If you've ever used Google Calendar, you will notice that all my calendars appear on the left, and I do have one associated with each classroom, and they each appear in a different color. So think about this from the student side for a second. This helps them keep track of what's coming up, what's due on what day, so it's a great way for them to manage their work. Along with a Google Calendar, if you pop in your Google Drive, you will notice that there's automatically been a folder created for Google Classroom. Please don't delete that folder. It's a handy folder because if I jump into that for a moment, every time I make an assignment, it automatically creates a folder inside of that Google Classroom. So it's like a backup. So if you accidentally delete an assignment, or if you want to go back and reuse something next year from this classroom, look, it saves it for you. So each one of these folders is an assignment that I have given in Google Classroom. And if I open up these folders, then I can see what my students have already submitted for that activity or for that lesson. So it's just another way to organize materials. Google Classroom automatically does this for you. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to, but I don't recommend deleting that from your Google Drive. Just keep it in there. If it bothers you, you could even create a subfolder to put it into. But I can see that these are the different students who've submitted work for that assignment. So just know that this calendar and this drive folder is already here for you. So if you'll just take a little peek at my classroom page, I already have set up some assignments, and this is how I do it. If I click on Create, I have different things I can choose from. So for now, I'm going to Start with material. So look at these different icons before I start. Material is just like a little bitty notebook with a ribbon in it. And so with material, this is something you might want to give them, like your syllabus, or maybe it's a bibliography, or maybe it's something you just want them to look at, something you want them to be able to refer to. So it's not going to have the students turn anything in for that. So that's what a material is. So I could give them a description. Again, I could add something from my Google Drive or from my computer or a YouTube video or a link. So I could just, maybe I just want to add in this slide deck that we're working from. And notice I've just added it here. And when I'm finished, I have the same capabilities I did for announcement. I can choose which classes do I want this to go to. Just one, maybe three, maybe five. That's up to you. I can also choose if I just want this to be available for different students. Topic, I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So when I'm finished with this, I've given it a title, I could give it a description, I've added attachments. I can even add several attachments to this. Maybe now I want to add a YouTube video that goes along with it. And I won't do that now for time's sake, but you can add as many attachments as you want, and I can post. And this now pops up here for me. Remember, new things go to the top. I'm going to stop a second and answer your question. If a student has accidentally deleted their own assignment, will the copy of it be in the class drive folder? Yes. So it makes like a template that lives in that class drive folder, and when they work on it, it will appear. So we do have a lot of students who, if they delete it, you can tell them where to go find it, and then they would come in and attach it back to that assignment. And we'll walk through doing that in a second. But yes, I love how it backs everything up. It creates a template of all of your work. Okay, so that was creating a syllabus. And again, notice how it gives just this little icon. So when a student opens it up, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to jump in as a student now and kind of let you see what this looks like from their side. I'm wondering if anybody else uses their own kids as practice or guinea pigs, my poor children. So when I go to her classwork tab now, I now see that her syllabus that I just created is at the top of the page. And notice it's grayed out, and that's because it's not something she has to do anything with. If you look at these assignments that are all bright pink, these are still things that she needs to complete. But when she opens the syllabus up, it lets her view the material. She can see my directions, she can see my attachments, and she could even leave a comment. So maybe she needs help with this. And so she would be able to type in a comment unless I turn that off, which we'll see how to do that in a minute. And now I will be able to see that comment as well. So unfortunately, the teachers do not know if students have viewed materials. There's no way to tell that. I wish there was, kind of like I saw it, but there's not. What you could do is go into each of their documents, which I'll show you in a second, and see if they've started on the work or not. Okay, let me go back to my teacher view. So that's creating a resource or a material. I can also create a question. So I love this. Again, notice the icon. It has a little question mark. And so I could say, what do you need help with today? I could give instructions. Again, I can add attachments. I could even create something from here. So if I add something from my Google Drive, I want to point out it will always show your most recent documents first. So things that you've created recently. But you could also upload something new to your Google Drive. You could search your drive, you could search your shared drive, and you can search things that you have starred inside of your Google Drive. I love that. But if you didn't have something, maybe you want to create a document or a slide or a drawing or a sheet or a form on the fly, you can do that from here as well. So again, with this question, I could say who it's for. I can come in now and say how many points that this question is going to be worth, or I could leave it ungraded. Next, I can add a due date. I highly recommend that you add due dates. Even if, especially during our NTI time right now, if you're giving them a grace period, but like 3 or 4 days, that's fine. The reason I'm saying add a due date is because then it puts it on their calendar. And if it's on their calendar, it will show up in their to-do list, and then they will know that it's work that they need to complete. So maybe I want to say it's due tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. You can change the time. Topic, still going to come back to that. Notice that with the question, you can choose, do you want students to be able to reply to each other? I love using this feature. I know it scares a lot of teachers away. Oh my goodness, we're going to let them just type. You are, you should, because then they can carry on conversations. And I've seen teachers use this in so many ways. Right now, I'm seeing it used as a daily check-in question. So you know how you have to have attendance in some way. So maybe one day you're asking them what's their favorite color. The next day you're asking them something they learned in the class today. But it's a great way, and then they can carry on that conversation. And then you can say students can edit their answer. I don't typically let them do that, but you could. Okay, again, I could schedule this for later, I could throw it away, or I can ask. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into the student view now because I want you to see what this looks like as a student. It still hasn't came through yet. Sometimes it takes a second to catch up with me. While that's loading, I will answer a question. Can you add a math page from Realize for them to actually write on and submit? You can. If you want to do that, then I recommend using the extension called KME, and that's another 30 minutes to an hour session on its own. So if you look at our NTI page, we do have directions on how to do that step by step. Sometimes teachers will upload a worksheet and then also put a Google Doc beside it or with it where they could copy their answers onto a new Google Sheet. And so we're going to look at that more in depth in Wednesday's section 2 of this session. We're going to go more into depth about creating different assignments. So I can see now that the question appeared at the top and it has the question mark. And this is what it looks like as a student. They come in, they view the question. And students are going to want to jump right here and type, but you'll notice that in the middle, this is for class comments. And so class comments, anybody in the class can see. You need to tell them the first time they use this that their answer goes over here. So maybe she needs help with page 52. And when she's answered it, she can even turn it in. Notice there's an option here for private comments. And like I said, take a second to explain. Take a screenshot of this and share it with your students, the difference between class comments and private comments. Because private comments are between a student and a teacher. So now that she turns this in, watch what happens. Now she can see her classmates' answers. So just wanted you to see, they can't see everybody else's answers until they have answered it themselves. So once she's answered, she can see classmates answered, and they would all show up here in a line. So that's from the student view. From the teacher view, when I'm ready to see it, and I love this because I don't know if you've assigned things in other ways and kids are sharing them and emailing them and sharing links in Drive, and it's like, where do I go to look for their work? In Google Classroom, it saves it all in one place. So when I'm ready to see the answers to this one question, I click on the question and I look at it. I can see that so far one person has turned it in, even though it's been assigned to 3. So I'm going to look at it. So now I could see all of their replies in one place, and I could even reply as part of the classroom discussion. And so now I'm adding to this discussion as well. If you wanted to keep these for grades, you can come over to the side, and this goes with every assignment you submit in Google Classroom. And I can just come down and start to type in their grades. Even if they don't finish it, I can say, ha ha ha, you need to get on the ball, and give grades on the side. And we will look in a moment at where all of these grades will live. Okay. So then I'm going to go back to my classroom. Okay, and I should have pointed out, whenever you need to go back to your home of your class, you just click right here on the title of your classroom. Okay, so far we've looked at creating a resource or material. We've looked at creating a question. The other one we're going to look at today is creating an assignment. Okay, with your assignment, this is where the magic happens. So I want you to think about this. How can you take just a typical worksheet or a typical PDF and change this into a life-altering, exciting experience? So maybe I wanted to have today a writing lesson, and I hope you'll do a better job at me in naming your assignments rather than just saying NTI work, NTI work, NTI work, NTI day one. Be specific, give it a title so that the students, when they're looking at their classroom, they know what they need to complete that day. And you need to do the same thing with your instructions. Write it out. I have seen great examples where teachers are using numbers and saying, number one, open the doc, number two, blah, 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 and then like spelling out step by step by step by step. So with this, I can add an attachment. And while I'm waiting for this to pull up, if you're attaching documents, please do not attach Word documents. If you attach a Word document inside Google Classroom, you're going to have to do a lot of extra steps, and so are the students. So to make your life easier, let's see if I can find this document. Please, please, please use just go ahead and use a Google Doc or go ahead and use a Google slide deck. And like I said, on Wednesday, during part 2 of the session, we'll go into a little more in depth about how you can create these lessons. So I've just attached a Google Doc. And by default, notice it says students can view file. That means they can open this assignment up and they can look at it. They can see it. They can read it. If they wanted, they would get the option to make a copy. But let's make it even easier. I can also choose students can edit the file. That means that all of my students in my classroom would be editing that one Google Doc. It does have its place. Don't let that scare you away. Maybe you wanted your students to fill out a graphic organizer together where they could all jump on and be typing at the same time or add their thoughts. So it does have so many wonderful uses. In this practice, I'm going to say, make a copy for each student. Now, when I do this, it's just like handing out papers in front of your classroom. Each student is going to get their own copy of the document, and it's even going to put their own their name on it for them. And it's going to store it in one place for me so that I can see all of their work at one time. Again, same options we've already talked about. You can assign this to multiple classes at one time. You could assign it to just certain students at one time. I can give it a point value. I can give it a due date. And again, I highly recommend you do that because it helps keep your students organized. Topic. So now it's time to talk about topics. I'm going to jump back to my class for a second before I go any further and let you look what happens. If I'm working in classroom, it would always put my most current assignment on top and push everything else down. If I opened up some classrooms right now, they get really scary because they might have just a list of 300 assignments. You can notice that these, I say, start here. This is Monday's work. This is Tuesday's work. This is Wednesday's work. This is what it means by creating a topic. Topics give you these bold headings and they let you organize your classwork page. Okay, so you can either choose a topic from here, one you've already created, or you can even create a new one. So maybe I want this to be week 4. So with topics, people, you could either do it by days, by dates, by unit, by topics, you know, a title of a heading that you have coming up. And then on Wednesday, we're going to get into rubrics and originality reports. Again, I could assign this right now, or I could schedule it for later. I'm going to go ahead and assign it. I'm sorry, I'm going to run about 5 minutes over. I hope you can stay with me for 5 more minutes while this is assigning. Okay, and so with this, I can see it now went under that topic I made called week 4, and here's Monday's writing lesson. So I just want to jump back to a student view very quickly and let you see what this looks like. Okay, and so once I'm here on my classwork page, I can see here is that assignment. So the students, because it's bright pink, they'll know that it is assigned. As a matter of fact, students can even come up to view your work and it will show them everything they still have not completed. I love that for the student side. So once they view the assignment, they'll open it up, they will see my directions, they will see my attachments. I'm glad you're getting to see inside of a student view. I get a lot of questions. What does that look like? And so this is it. So when students are finished, they have the capability to turn it in. They can even add extra documents to this. Maybe you had them create a video. Maybe they read their writing and could record it, or maybe they did artwork to go along with it. So they could choose to add attachments to the assignment as well. So when I open this as a student view and I see your questions over there, I'm going to jump back to those in a second, I promise. Notice, here it is. It put her name on it for her. It gave her her own Google Doc. She does not have to share this with me. It's already in my Google Classroom. And I'll show you what that looks like from the teacher side. I just want to make a change so that you can see what happens. Okay, so she's now finished, and when she's finished, and this is why we want to remind our students, turn it in when you're done. I don't personally penalize students if they forget to hit the turn it in button. Please don't. You can see their work. It's just a good reminder for them because it takes it off of their to-do list. So jumping back in as a teacher, and I can now click on that assignment. Remember, it stores all of the work for assignment in that assignment. So I don't have to like go searching in 5,000 places. I open it up and I view it. Notice I see all of my students' work in one place. It keeps it all right here for me. And I can see that this student has turned hers in and that it was assigned to. So maybe if you've noticed a student hasn't been turning things in, you can still come in and open their work up. If she were writing on hers right now, I could even see her typing in real time. This is great. We have a lot of teachers who say, okay, we're going to have our online class today from 12 and 1. I'm just going to check in and peek on your documents. And so she just opens them all up. She can even scroll through them all right here. You can tell this is classroom 1 student, this is classroom 2 student. And so she can peek in on their work, and she can come over here and even add private comments. I think you need to add more detail here, or I like the way you're going. Don't forget to use punctuation. So you can add comments directly onto their work as they're writing. Now, with our sample student we were looking at a moment ago who turned hers in. This is just like turning in papers into your classroom. If you hand in a paper, if you turn it in, the students can still see their work, but they cannot make any changes to it when it's in the teacher's hand. So teachers would have to return it. And we're going to go into more detail on Wednesday's session with that. Okay, so these are just the very basics of using Google Classroom. Let me look at a few questions. Is there a place to see all comments in one place without having to go through every assignment? Unfortunately, we can't go through all of them, but they do show up for you. So the last thing that I need to show you today is where our notifications are. And this is how you would see if somebody makes a new comment. Otherwise, you can see that they all show up here. There's a little speech bubble with the 1 letting me know that there's a comment there. So you can just quickly scroll down and see those. Okay, I think I already answered that one about if you want to write on top of a PDF, like a page from Realize, you would use the extension called Cami. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on Wednesday too. The last thing I would like to share with you today is how to turn on or talk about notifications. Whenever I add anything to the stream, or whenever I add a new assignment, students are automatically notified through their email. And that's why we want to encourage students to use their Fayette County emails. They get a notification saying this is the announcement, and if you attach a link, it automatically links it from there as well. So it's a great reminder for students. On the teacher side, you're going to be overwhelmed with all of those notifications. So I do want to show you how to turn these on and off. Remember, if I click on the 3 lines in the top left-hand corner, and these are all of my classes, I can see the ones I'm teaching and the ones I'm enrolled in as a student. At the bottom, I would click on settings. Okay, so from here, I can see you can add a profile picture. I get asked that question a lot. I can also say, do I want to receive email notifications or not? So don't be afraid to leave this on, because you can come down and customize these features. So maybe you want to be notified on private comments, or maybe you want to be notified comments that mention you specifically. This is one a lot of teachers leave on, as late submissions of student work. So if you want to be notified when a student turns in something late, you can turn that feature on. If you want to be notified on any of these, if you come down to class notifications, you can come and turn specific classes on and off. For example, I have notifications on for 2 of the classes I teach, but other ones that I might be a co-teacher or just a member of, I leave those notifications off. Otherwise, you will get 1,000, if not more, emails a day. So again, the 3 lines, scroll all the way to the bottom, click on settings, and you can play with these different notification settings. Okay, I think I've caught up on all questions. If I missed any, please let me know. If you have other questions at this time, please ask, because we've covered all of our skills for today.